The planet called Vespera was a quiet place. Most days, the sky was filled with gray clouds and dust from the old mining machines. The ground was dry and cracked. People who lived there were mostly miners or traders trying to survive far from the big cities of the galaxy. For a long time, the Xanthari Empire had controlled this world. They sent their soldiers to take the minerals from the ground and to keep everyone afraid. One day, a large ship landed just outside the main mining camp. The ground shook as it came down. People stopped working and looked up with fear in their eyes. The ship was dark silver, marked with the sign of the Empire. Everyone knew that trouble had arrived. From the ship, a group of Xanthari soldiers came out. They wore heavy black armor and carried strong weapons. Their leader was Captain Merrick, a tall man with sharp eyes. He spoke in a cold voice as he walked through the camp, giving orders to his soldiers. He told the miners that someone dangerous was hiding among them. He said there would be questions and that no one could leave the camp. The miners whispered to each other. They were used to Xanthari soldiers, but something about this group felt different. There was tension in the air, as if something important was about to happen. A young Xanthari cadet named Lyra followed close behind Captain Merrick. She was new to this world and did not like the way the miners looked at her. She heard stories about Vespera from the other soldiers' stories, about rebels and strange attacks on patrols in the night. One of the miners, a woman named Katie, was standing near the edge of the crowd. Her hands were dirty from work and her face was tired. She watched the soldiers with a calm expression. Katie had lived on Vespera all her life. She knew the tricks of surviving under the Empire, but she also felt a quiet hope inside her. Lately, things had changed in the camp. Sometimes food or water would appear when it was needed most. Sick miners found medicine left by their beds. Nobody knew where these gifts came from. Captain Merrick started his search. His soldiers went into the homes and work areas, looking for anyone acting strange. He believed he would find the rebel quickly. Merrick did not believe the stories about humans. To him, humans were gone forever. They had fought the Empire many years ago and lost. All the history books said the same thing. The last human died in the Great War. Now, only Xanthari ruled. Lyra, the young cadet, walked with another soldier named Carter. Carter was older and liked to tell stories to the new cadets. He said quietly, "Do you believe in ghosts, Lyra?" She shook her head, but she was not so sure. Carter smiled. "The old miners say a human walks these grounds. But that's just a story. Humans are extinct, right?" That night, the air was cold. The miners were sent back to their small homes. Xanthari soldiers set up lights and guards around the camp. Merrick thought the rebel would try to run, but nothing happened. He went to his quarters and tried to rest, but his mind was not at peace. In the darkness outside the camp, a lone figure moved quietly. His name was Ethan. He was not a ghost, though many believed he was. He was the last human, and he had learned to survive in secret. He watched the camp from a safe distance. His eyes were tired, but his mind was sharp. He remembered when the Empire first came to Vespera. He remembered losing his family. Now he was alone. But he had made a promise to himself that he would never let the Empire destroy hope. Ethan moved like a shadow, making sure no one saw him. He carried a small bag filled with old human tools. He had learned to fix machines, break locks, and hide in plain sight. Tonight, he planned to leave food and medicine for a family whose father had been taken by the soldiers. He made his way through the silent camp. Passing by the sleeping guards, he placed the supplies near Katie's home, then moved on. He heard voices and stopped to listen. Two soldiers were talking near the main gate. "Do you think it's true?" one soldier asked. "A human hiding here?" "It's just talk," the other replied. No human could survive this long, Ethan smiled to himself. He had heard these words before. Every time the Empire thought they had finished with humans, one would show up to remind them that they were wrong. As he finished his work, Ethan looked up at the sky. He remembered stories of Earth, the old home of humans, now a ruined world. He had never seen it, but the stories were part of him. He wondered if anyone else remembered those days, back In her small home, Katie found the supplies left by Ethan. She looked around but saw no one. She whispered, "Thank you," and hid the food away. She did not know who helped her, but she hoped one day to meet this person. She went to sleep feeling a little safer. The next morning, Captain Merrick was angry. He learned that 2 of his patrols had found their weapons missing. No one was hurt, but the soldiers were embarrassed. Merrick shouted at them and ordered more patrols. He wanted to catch the rebel and prove his power. Lyra heard the miners talking about the night visitor. Some called him a hero, others said he was a ghost. Lyra did not know what to believe. She watched Katie, who seemed calmer than the others. Lyra wondered if Katie knew more than she said. Ethan watched from a distance. He knew it was only a matter of time before the Xanthari caught him. He thought about leaving Vespera, but he could not leave the people behind. He saw the way the soldiers treated them, and it reminded him of his own pain. Ethan decided to fight back, but in a way that would give hope instead of fear. That day, he sneaked into the old tunnels under the camp. He knew these tunnels better than anyone. He set small traps that would confuse the soldiers but not hurt them. He wanted to show the Empire that they could not control everything. As the sun went down, the tension in the camp grew stronger. Captain Merrick was sure the rebel would strike again. He waited in the command center, watching the monitors. Lyra sat nearby, feeling nervous. Suddenly, an alarm rang out. The power in the camp flickered. Doors refused to open. Soldiers ran in every direction, trying to find the cause. Merrick shouted orders, but nothing worked. In the middle of the chaos, someone left a message on the main screen. It said, "You are not welcome here." Merrick's face turned red with anger. He ordered his best soldier, Soren, to find the person responsible. Soren was known for his cruelty. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, Captain. I will find your ghost." That night, the miners gathered in secret. Katie spoke to them. She said, "Someone is helping us. Maybe it is time we help back." The miners agreed to watch out for the stranger. To keep his secret safe, Ethan watched from the shadows, feeling hope for the first time in a long while. He knew the fight was just beginning, but he was ready. For the people of Vespera, for his family, for all humans who had suffered, he would not give up. The morning after the alarms, the camp felt different. People moved quietly. The miners talked in low voices as they walked to work. The Xanthari soldiers watched everyone, their faces hard. The message on the screen from the night before was all anyone could talk about. Even the bravest miners felt a little nervous, but some also felt a little hope. Captain Merrick started the day by meeting with his top soldiers. Soren stood beside him, listening closely. Soren was known for his harsh ways, but he was also clever. Merrick asked, "What do you think, Soren? Is our enemy really just a miner?" Soren shook his head. "No, Captain. This is no ordinary rebel. The message, the traps, the missing weapons, they all show skill. I think we are dealing with someone with real training." Merrick did not like hearing this. He wanted to show the Empire that he could control even the worst problems. "Find him," Merrick ordered. "I want this ghost caught before sunset." Lyra, the young cadet, watched as Soren gave orders to search every home and tunnel. She felt uneasy. She remembered the stories about the last human, stories she had heard as a child. She did not believe all of them, but she could see that something strange was happening in the camp. She noticed the way the miners looked at each other. It was as if they were sharing a secret. Katie worked in the mine with her friends. They moved slowly, picking at the hard rock, but they whispered while they worked. They talked about the supplies that kept showing up, the missing weapons, and the message on the screen. Some of the miners believed the visitor was not just a ghost, but a real person, maybe even a human. One of the older miners, Sam, was sure it was a human. "My father saw one long ago," Sam said. "He said they were strong, clever, and cared. About others, maybe one is still alive, hiding and helping us." Katie listened to Sam and smiled a little. She wanted to believe it was true. She wished she could meet this person and thank them for all the help. She felt stronger knowing someone out there cared. At midday, the soldiers marched through the tunnels searching for the rebel. They checked every corner, but found nothing. Some miners acted scared, but most just stayed quiet. Soren watched their faces, looking for any sign of fear or guilt, while the soldiers searched. Ethan was deep in the old tunnels far from the main camp. He had hidden himself well, moving only when it was safe. He watched the soldiers and learned their patterns. He saw how Soren gave orders and how Captain Merrick grew more and more angry each hour. Ethan used an old radio to listen to the Zenthari. He heard their plans and warnings. He smiled when he learned they still thought he was a ghost. Ethan knew he could not hide forever, but he needed to be careful. If the soldiers caught him, they would punish the miners. That night, Katie went to the water well alone. She waited, hoping to see the stranger who had helped her family. She did not see Ethan, but she left a small note under a rock. It said, "Thank you for helping us. We want to help you too." Ethan found the note later. He read it by the light of a small lamp in the darkness. He felt a warmth in his heart. For a long time, he had lived only for survival, but now he saw that he could do more. He could give these people a reason to hope. Ethan wrote a reply and left it in the same place. "I am not a hero," he wrote, "but together we can protect this camp. Tell the others to be strong. The Empire will not win here." The next day, word spread among the miners. They passed the message quietly from person to person. People began to trust each other more. They watched the soldiers and tried to stay out of trouble, but they also looked for ways to help the mysterious friend who protected them. Soren grew more impatient. He ordered the soldiers to search the houses at night, but still they found nothing. Lyra noticed that Soren was becoming crueler. He shouted at the miners and punished anyone who seemed slow or uncooperative. One evening, Soren gathered the miners in the square. He wanted to scare them into giving up the rebel. He said, "Anyone who helps the enemy will be punished. You all know what the Empire does to traitors." His voice was loud, but the miners did not answer. They stood together, silent and strong. After the meeting, Katie slipped away and found Ethan in the tunnel. She was scared but determined. "Why are you doing this?" she asked him. "Why risk your life for us?" Ethan looked at her and said, "Because I know what it feels like to lose everything. My family was taken by the Empire. I survived, but I promised I would never let them win." "You're good people. You deserve better," Katie nodded. "We want to help. Tell us what to do." Ethan smiled for the first time in a long while. He told Katie about his plan. If the miners worked together, they could slow the soldiers down. They could block tunnels, hide supplies, and confuse the guards. It would not be easy, but if everyone did a small part, they could make a difference. The miners started to act. At first, it was simple things. They worked slower, gave the soldiers the wrong directions, or made small noises to distract them. When the soldiers tried to follow Ethan through the tunnels, they always found dead ends. Ethan and Katie met every night to share news and plan new tricks. They became friends. Katie told Ethan about her family and her dreams for a better life. Ethan listened, and for the first time in years he began to believe in hope again. But not everyone was careful. One night, a young miner named Nick tried to be brave. He tried to sneak food to Ethan but was caught by the soldiers. Soren was furious. He ordered Nick to be locked away. He told the miners, "If any of you help the rebel again, you will suffer the same fate." Katie was afraid, but Ethan told her not to give up. "They want us to be scared," he said. "But as long as we stand together, they cannot break us." Ethan decided it was time to send the Zenthari a real message. He waited until night, then sneaked into the soldiers' barracks. He used his old tools to break the locks and steal the guards' keys. He left another message for Merrick. "You cannot stop hope. You cannot stop me." In the morning, Merrick found the message and was furious. He yelled at his soldiers and blamed Soren for the failures. Soren promised to catch the rebel soon. Lyra began to wonder about the truth. She saw how the miners looked after each other and how even in the face of fear, they still found ways to smile. She remembered her own family lost on another world and felt a small pain in her heart. As days passed, Ethan became more than a rumor. He became a symbol of hope for the miners. People started to stand a little taller. They believed that maybe, just maybe, they could survive this dark time. But Soren was planning something new. He was not interested in playing games anymore. He brought in new equipment, scanners, and robots to search every corner of the camp. He ordered the soldiers to take hostages, starting with Katie's family. Ethan saw this and knew things were about to get worse. He could not let anyone else suffer because of him. He thought about running, but he could not leave his friends behind. He made a new plan, one that would risk everything. In the shadows of the old tunnels, Ethan waited. He watched as Soren and his men made their moves. The fight for Vespera was not over. It was just beginning. The camp was tense and quiet after Soren took hostages. Everyone knew that things had changed. Now, the Xanthari soldiers did not only search for the hidden rebel. They used fear to try to control everyone. People walked with their heads down. Hoping not to be noticed, soldiers watched every move. Anyone who looked suspicious was questioned. Many miners felt hopeless. But a few still believed in the stories about the last human. Katie's family was locked away in a small building close to the soldiers' base. The door was heavy, and guards stood watch. Katie was scared for them, but she did not let her fear show. She told the other miners that things would get better, but she was not sure herself. Ethan watched the building from the shadows. He saw how many guards there were. He saw the cameras and the bright lights. He wanted to help right away, but he knew he had to be careful. One wrong move and the soldiers would hurt Katie's family or someone else. Ethan spent the whole night thinking about what to do. In the morning, Captain Merrick met with Soren. Merrick was angry and tired. "Why have we not caught this human yet?" he shouted. "You have all these soldiers, all these tools, and still nothing." Soren kept calm. "The human is smart, Captain. He is not just hiding. He is fighting back in small ways. We must be smarter." Merrick did not like that answer, but he knew Soren was right. "Do whatever it takes. I want this finished." Soren smiled a cold smile. He liked having power over the camp. He called the miners together and said, "This is your last warning. If you do not give us the rebel, your families will pay." Lyra watched all of this with worry. She had never seen things get so bad before. She remembered the stories about humans being dangerous, but what she saw was different. She saw miners helping each other. She saw fear, but she also saw hope. Lyra started to wonder if the Empire was wrong about humans. That night, Katie sneaked away from her work and went to the old well. She hoped Ethan would be there. She was careful to avoid the guards. When she reached the well, she found Ethan waiting in the shadows. "Are you all right?" Ethan asked. Katie shook her head. "My family is locked up. Soren says he will hurt them if you do not give yourself up." Ethan's face was full of pain. "I'm sorry, Katie. This is my fault. I never wanted anyone to get hurt." Katie touched his arm. "You did not do this. The Empire did, but we have to do something. The miners are scared. Some want you to leave. Others want to fight." Ethan thought for a moment. "We cannot fight them head on. They have more weapons and soldiers. But maybe we can trick them. If we make them think I am somewhere else, maybe we can free your family." Katie listened carefully as Ethan explained his idea. He would create a distraction on the far side of the camp, making it look like he was trying to escape. While the soldiers ran after him, Katie and a few trusted miners would sneak into the building and free the hostages. The next day, Ethan started his plan. He moved through the tunnels and set off alarms near the edge of the camp. He broke a power line, making lights flicker. He left another message, this time on the side of the main building. It said, "You are looking in the wrong place." Soren saw the message and sent half his soldiers to search the far tunnels. He was sure the human would finally be caught. While the soldiers searched, Katie and two miners, Sam and Leah, hurried to the building where her family was locked up. They hid behind boxes until the guards turned away. Katie's hands shook as she picked up a rock and threw it toward the fence. The sound made the guards look away just long enough for Sam to sneak up behind them and knock them down. Leah used the stolen keys to open the door. Inside, Katie found her family scared but safe. She hugged her mother and brother, tears in her eyes. "We have to go, now," she whispered. They moved quickly through the shadows, back to the safe part of the tunnels. When the soldiers returned, they found the building empty. Soren was furious. He yelled at the guards and smashed his fist against the wall. Ethan, watching from the tunnels, breathed a sigh of relief. The plan had worked, but he knew Soren would not give up easily. Merrick called an emergency meeting. He told his officers, "We are losing control. We need a new plan. If we cannot catch the human, the Empire will send someone else. Someone worse." Soren listened quietly, thinking, "Let me handle it. I will use every tool we have. I will catch him, even if I have to burn this camp to the ground." Lyra could not stay quiet anymore. She said, "Captain, the miners are not the enemy. If we hurt them, we only make things worse." Merrick glared at her. "You are young, Lyra. You do not understand how things work. We rule by fear. That is the Empire's way." But Lyra did understand. She had seen enough to know that fear was not the answer. She decided to help the miners in secret. She started to leave small hints about the soldiers' plans, slipping messages to Katie whenever she could. Ethan and Katie began to trust Lyra. She showed them which tunnels would be searched and which were safe. She told them when Soren planned to move the soldiers and where the cameras were blind, the miners became more organized. They set up watches at every entrance and used signals to warn each other when soldiers were near. People who were once afraid now stood together. They believed they could beat the Empire, if only for a little while. Ethan saw the change in the camp. He saw hope in people's eyes. He saw Katie become a leader, giving orders and helping those in need. He felt proud, but also worried. The more the miners did, the angrier Soren became. One evening, as Ethan moved through the tunnels, he heard someone following him. He turned and saw Soren holding a gun. "I knew you would come here," Soren said quietly. "You are smart, but not smart enough." Ethan kept his hands raised. "You do not have to do this. Let the miners go. They have done nothing wrong." Soren laughed. "They help you. That makes them guilty. The Empire does not forgive." Ethan took a step back, thinking fast. "If you hurt them, they will only fight harder. You cannot win." Soren's eyes were cold. "I do not care about winning. I care about control, and I will have it." Before Soren could fire, Katie appeared behind him. She threw a rock, hitting his arm. The gun went off, but the shot missed. Ethan rushed at Soren, knocking him down. The two men fought in the dirt, rolling and struggling. Katie called for help, and soon other miners joined in. Soren was strong, but the miners were many. In the end, Soren was overpowered. The miners tied him up and dragged him away. Ethan was tired, his body bruised, but he was alive. The next morning, the miners woke to a new feeling. Soren was gone, and for the first time, the soldiers were afraid. Captain Merrick did not know what to do. He could not control the miners, and his best officer was missing. Ethan stood in the center of the camp and spoke to everyone. "You have all shown great courage. The Empire wanted to make you afraid, but you chose hope. You fought back, not with weapons, but with your hearts. The fight is not over, but today we have won a small victory." The miners cheered. For the first time in many years, they felt like they belonged to themselves, not to the Empire, but Ethan knew the Empire would not give up so easily. He knew more soldiers would come. Still, he felt ready. He was not alone anymore. He had friends, and together they would face whatever came next. In the shadows, Lyra smiled. She knew she had made the right choice. The story of the last human was no longer just a story. It was real, and it was hope. The next days were not easy for anyone in the camp. The news that Soren was captured by the miners spread quickly. The soldiers who remained felt nervous and angry. They still tried to watch the miners, but now they moved in groups, always checking behind them. Some soldiers whispered that the miners had magic, while others believed it was all because of the last human. Captain Merrick did not know what to do. He felt powerless for the first time in his life. He worried what the Empire would say if he reported that one human had beaten his whole squad. He stayed in his room for long hours, trying to think of a way out. He sent messages to the Empire asking for help, but there was no answer. Out here, far from the center of power, the camp was easy to forget. Lyra continued to help the miners in secret. She brought them information about when the soldiers would move or when a supply ship would land. She talked to Ethan, Katie, and the others whenever she could. She also listened to the fears of the young soldiers, who were not all cruel like Soren. Some were just as scared as the miners, lost in a world they did not understand. The miners grew bolder. They fixed old machines and used them to block paths the soldiers might use. They shared food and stories at night. Children ran and laughed, forgetting their fear for a while. Ethan watched them and felt hope growing stronger. He spent time teaching the miners simple ways to protect themselves. He showed them how to use the tunnels, how to signal for help, and how to hide when needed. Katie became the voice of the miners. She listened to their worries and spoke to them when they felt afraid. She reminded them that together they were stronger than they knew. She stood beside Ethan when he talked to the group. She also worried about the future. She knew the Empire would send new soldiers. She asked Ethan, "What will we do when more come?" Ethan looked at her with tired eyes but answered calmly, "We will stand together. We will not be alone this time." One morning, a strange sound filled the sky. Everyone looked up as a small ship landed near the old mine entrance. The miners and soldiers both stopped what they were doing. Out of the ship stepped a woman in a dark gray coat. Her face was sharp, and her eyes looked cold. She walked straight toward Captain Merrick. Her name was Commander Pierce. She was sent by the Empire to fix the problem at the camp. She met with Merrick in his office. She listened as he explained what happened, but she showed no emotion. "You lost control to a group of miners and a human?" she asked. Merrick nodded, ashamed. Commander Pierce called for a meeting with all soldiers. She spoke in a strong voice. "There is only one rule: obey the Empire. Anyone who fails will be punished." She looked at each soldier and then at Merrick. "We will take back this camp by force if needed." The miners heard about the new commander and felt fear again. Some wanted to hide, while others wanted to fight. Ethan called a meeting in the tunnels. He spoke quietly so only those close could hear. "We cannot fight her with weapons. We must use our minds. We will confuse her. We will make her think there are many humans here, not just one." Katie liked the idea. She helped organize the miners. They started to leave signs in different places, footprints, old clothes, even simple drawings of faces. The soldiers began to believe there were many rebels hiding in the shadows. Commander Pierce was not fooled so easily. She brought new machines to scan for humans. She locked down the camp and set traps near the tunnels. She sent her best soldiers to find Soren, but Soren would not talk. He was locked in a room and he only stared at the wall. Lyra warned Ethan about the new scanners. "They will find you if you get too close," she said. Ethan thanked her and made new plans. He asked the miners to help him build fake signals, to fool the scanners into following the wrong path. They worked through the night, tired but determined. One afternoon, Katie and Ethan sat together in a small room, resting after hours of work. Katie looked at Ethan and said, "Why do you never give up?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because I remember my family. I remember what the Empire took from us. But I also remember kindness. People helped me when I was alone. Now I help others. It is all we can do." Katie smiled softly. She liked talking to Ethan. She felt brave when he was near. She said, "You are not alone anymore. We are all with you now." Suddenly, alarms began to ring. Commander Pierce's machines had found a signal in one of the tunnels. Soldiers rushed to block every entrance. The miners panicked, running to their hiding spots. Ethan knew this was the moment he had feared. He grabbed his old tools and ran to the main tunnel. Katie followed him. They found Lyra waiting. "The soldiers are coming," she said. "You have to go, Ethan." Ethan shook his head. "I will not run. If I leave, they will punish everyone." Lyra said, "There is a way out, but you must trust me." She showed Ethan and Katie a secret door hidden behind a pile of rocks. "This tunnel leads outside the camp to the hills. You can escape and hide." Katie looked at Ethan, afraid. "What about everyone else?" Ethan said. "We cannot leave them behind." "We must help them escape too," Lyra nodded. "If we make it look like you left, Commander Pierce will stop searching the camp." The miners can stay safe. You can come back when it is safe again, Ethan agreed to the plan. He told the miners, I will leave for now, but I will come back. Do not give up hope. Take care of each other. The miners were sad but understood. They watched as Ethan, Katie, and Lyra disappeared into the secret tunnel. As they crawled through the dark passage, they could hear the sounds of soldiers searching above. The tunnel was cold and tight. They moved slowly, not sure what would wait for them at the end. Finally, they came out on a hill far from the camp. The air was fresh and the sky was wide and blue. They looked back and saw the camp below, surrounded by soldiers and machines. Ethan felt both relief and sadness. Lyra said, We are safe for now, but what will you do next? Ethan looked at the camp and said, We must find others who need help. There are other camps, other people like us. If we can show them that the Empire can be beaten, even in small ways, then hope will grow. Katie agreed. We will help as many as we can. We will come back for the miners when it is safe. For the next days, they moved through the hills, avoiding patrols and watching the camp from afar. They sent messages to the miners whenever they could. Inside the camp, the miners kept the secret. They told the soldiers that the human had escaped, and the soldiers believed it. Commander Pierce tried to find Ethan, but she could not. She punished Merrick and the other soldiers for their failure. She told the miners that any sign of the human would mean more pain. But the miners stayed quiet. Ethan, Katie, and Lyra made plans for the future. They learned about the Empire's patrols and the other camps nearby. They talked to people in secret, spreading the message that hope was alive. Even if only one human remained, the Empire could not kill hope. Ethan felt tired, but proud. He saw how far they had come. He knew the fight was not over. He knew that one day he would return to the camp and stand with the miners again. Until then, he would keep moving, keep fighting, and keep hope alive. The sky above was clear, and the stars began to shine as the sun set. In the distance, the camp lights glowed. Ethan looked at them and promised, I will not let you down. Days passed slowly for the miners after Ethan, Katie, and Lyra escaped into the hills. The soldiers kept searching for them but could not find their trail. Commander Pierce grew more and more angry. She punished the miners by making them work longer hours and cutting their food. She told them that any sign of the human would mean even harder times. The miners suffered, but they did not give up Ethan's secret. In the hills, Ethan, Katie, and Lyra moved carefully. They found small caves to sleep in at night and took turns keeping watch. Katie missed her family and worried about the people still inside the camp. She wished she could do more to help them. Lyra did her best to keep everyone's spirits up, telling stories about her own family and how she ended up in the Empire's army. Ethan spent his days planning. He watched the camp from a distance, learning how the soldiers moved and where the machines were placed. He wanted to help the miners, but he knew he needed a good plan. He worried that Commander Pierce would send for more soldiers from the Empire's main fleet, and then it would be impossible to save anyone. One evening, as they sat around a small fire in the cave, Katie said, Maybe we need to find help. There must be other camps like ours. Maybe other people want to fight back. Ethan nodded. We cannot do this alone. If we find others, we can work together. The Empire is strong, but they do not understand hope. If people see that one human can make a difference, they might find courage too. Lyra agreed. There are other soldiers like me, ones who do not like what the Empire does. Maybe they will help if they know the truth. So the three of them set out to find more people. They traveled from camp to camp, moving at night and hiding during the day. At each place, they listened to the miners and learned about their lives. They heard stories of lost families and hard work, but also of small acts of kindness. Sometimes, Ethan left food or medicine behind, just as he had done before. After many days, Ethan found a group of miners in a valley far from Vespera. They were tired and scared, but when they saw Ethan, they did not turn him away. They listened as he spoke about hope and courage. He told them the story of Vespera, how the miners there had stood up to the Empire. He said, You are not alone. We can help each other. Together we are stronger than the Empire. The miners in the valley agreed to help. They sent messages to other camps, asking people to join them. Slowly, a network of friends began to grow. At first, they did small things, sharing food, hiding. Those who ran from the soldiers and sending news from camp to camp. Soon, they became brave enough to stand up when the Empire tried to hurt them. Back at Vespera, Commander Pierce realized that things were changing. The miners worked more slowly, and sometimes machines broke down for no reason. The soldiers grew tired and nervous. Pierce tried to scare the miners, but it did not work like before. Even Captain Merrick noticed that the people no longer looked afraid. He started to doubt the Empire's power for the first time in his life. Ethan sent secret messages to the miners in Vespera through trusted friends. He told them, "Do not give up, help is coming." The miners read these words and felt hope return. One night, as a cold wind blew across the hills, Ethan called Katie and Lyra to his side. He said, "We have waited long enough. The time has come to return to Vespera. The people there are ready. We must stand with them." Lyra was afraid. "If we go back, Commander Pierce will try to catch us. She has more soldiers now." Ethan looked at her with calm eyes. "She does not have the people. If the miners stand together, even Pierce cannot control them. The Empire is strong, but it cannot break the human spirit." They traveled back to Vespera in the dark, moving through the old tunnels that Lyra remembered. They arrived as dawn was breaking, the sky turning from black to gray. The miners welcomed them back with quiet smiles and strong hugs. Katie ran to her family and held them close. Ethan stood before the miners and spoke softly. "We are all afraid sometimes, but we have hope. That is what makes us strong. The Empire wanted to destroy hope, but we did not let them. Now we must show them what it means to be free." Commander Pierce learned that Ethan was back and sent her soldiers to catch him, but the miners were ready. They blocked the tunnels, hid Ethan, and confused the soldiers at every turn. When the soldiers tried to force the miners to talk, no one spoke a word. The miners used every trick Ethan and Katie had taught them. They moved supplies through secret tunnels, used hand signals to warn of danger, and made the soldiers waste time chasing shadows. Even some of the younger soldiers, who had grown tired of hurting innocent people, stopped following orders. One evening, Commander Pierce called all the miners and soldiers to the main square. She stood on a platform, her face cold and hard. She said, "I know the human is here. If you do not give him up, you will all suffer." Ethan stepped forward from the crowd. "I am here, but you are wrong about us. You think you can scare people into obedience, but you cannot break hope. I am only one, but I am not alone. We all stand together." The miners stood with Ethan. They formed a line behind him, not moving, not speaking. Pierce looked at them and saw something she could not understand. She saw that her threats meant nothing now. Pierce called for her soldiers to arrest Ethan, but some of them refused to move. One young soldier said, "We do not want to fight these people anymore. We want to go home." Pierce was shocked. She shouted at Merrick to do something, but Merrick shook his head. "You lost, Commander. These people will never be slaves again." In that moment, the Empire lost its hold on Vespera. Pierce left in anger, taking the few loyal soldiers with her. The others laid down their weapons and asked for forgiveness. Ethan and Katie watched as the camp began to change. The miners cheered and hugged each other. People cried tears of joy. They cleaned up the old buildings, planted new gardens, and worked together without fear. Lyra stayed with them, helping to build a new life. News of what happened on Vespera spread quickly. Other camps learned that it was possible to fight back, even against the Empire. More people joined the network, and small acts of rebellion began to grow across the galaxy. Ethan did not stay in one place. He traveled from camp to camp, helping people and sharing the story of Vespera. He always told them, "I am only one, but I am not alone. As long as we have hope, we are never defeated." Katie became a leader at Vespera, always helping those in need. Lyra started a school for young people, teaching them to think for themselves and to care for each other. Even Merrick stayed to help, trying to make up for the harm he had caused. In the end, The legend of the last human lived on. Some said Ethan was still out there, helping people wherever he could. Others said he had finally found peace. But everyone remembered his words and his courage. The sky over Vespera was blue again. Flowers grew where there was once only dust. Children played and laughed in the sunshine. The Empire still ruled many worlds, but now people had hope. And sometimes hope was enough to change everything.